disrespectful, and we're asking people so that we can do our presentation.
Disrespectful.
It's disrespectful what you do to us.
Hold on for a second. Hold on 1 second. Everybody, I have all these cards. You're going to get a chance to make any statement you want to make. All right? But we can't have people standing behind us. We're not going to start the meeting until the people move up in the back.
Democracy.
The ground rules until these people move forward. And we're not going to do it. But
we're expected to infer that the plant is safe. This is the logic of the nuclear industry. If there is no mishap, the plant is safe. Like driving up Route 91 at 105 miles an hour is called safe if you get home without a mishap. When VY was built, the engineers told us the core damage frequency, the frequency of meltdowns would be 1 accident in 10,000 years. This was because the design basis considered every possible credible accident. Now we have 15,000 reactor years worldwide. We should have had 1 or 2 meltdowns.
We've had 5.
We've had more. Considering only reactors that supply power to customers, the meltdowns are as follows. SRE near Los Angeles, Fermi 1 near Detroit, Chapel Cross, Scotland, Saint-Laurent, France, 1969. A1, Czechoslovakia, 3 Mile Island, Saint-Laurent again, the other reactor, 1980. Chernobyl, Greifswald, East Germany, and 3 at Fukushima. The total is 12.
Right now, what I want is I would like that spent fuel in our pool that's 7 stories high. I would like to get that out of the pool as quickly as possible and as fast as possible. I think
resignation of Chairman Yazko, and also about the whistleblowers in Region 4 who have come forward very courageously from within your ranks to point out that when they are talking safety, they are being put down by their superiors. That really troubles me, and it really erodes any shred of confidence that I, as a citizen, might have in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I would love to believe that you are keeping me safe, but unfortunately, my research, the Congressional Budget Office report, the AP series on the inner workings of the NRC all speak to a very deep problem at your agency, and I do not feel safe. I have 2 questions. First question, I understand that lives lost in a nuclear accident are calculated at 1/3 the cost of a life. In other words, lives lost in a nuclear accident are worth 1/3 as much in economic calculations than lives lost, for instance, in other disasters that FEMA calculates. I would like to know if that's true. I read that from the Union of Concerned Scientists materials. My second question is, I'm looking at publications like The Economist. Nuclear energy, the dream that failed. I'm listening to comments by the chairman and CEO of the largest nuclear reactor operator in the United States, John Rowe, in Forbes last month, saying there is no future for nuclear in the United States. It's a money-losing industry. I see French Areva shares down some 80%, the French government company Areva that operates nuclear reactors worldwide. I'm wondering, sir, what happens when the cost of managing these old plants and the waste that are concomitant with them, what happens when companies like Entergy and Exelon go belly up? Who picks up the tab?
The chairman made a statement, and what the chairman said is that he's been considering resigning and going on to other pursuits. We have what we call, the question is, what about if a plant shuts down and who pays the cost for cleaning up the site? We do. Pretty much. We have a decommissioning fund that's required, and they all are required to pay into it, and we review the funds available as the market changes and the like, so that there is sufficient funds available to clean these places up. Decommissioning is something that we've been doing for quite a while, and we're pretty good at it. And
my name is Andrew Larkin. I understand the biggest problem with the nuclear power plants is when they have a Fukushima-like disaster. I understand the second biggest problem they have is during when they shut the fuel down and they vent off all the gases for recycling. I wonder why the NRC excludes certain inert gases from regulation. According to your regulation, why you're not finding it necessary to track the radon, the xenon, and all the other radioactive substances. And I'd also like to know why, despite the tendency of the NRC to track this data, why this data has never been made public. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris? Okay, let's start with the first one, which is the problem with
Refueling.
Okay, I thought you were talking.
No, I think we're all agreed that if Vernon melts down, it's a bad thing. I think everybody agrees that. I think everybody knows that the funding under, of course, the Anderson Act, whatever it is grossly inadequate to pay for any of the havoc that you people have wreaked. I don't want to address those disastrous problems. I want to address the ongoing disaster of your ongoing release during the process of venting off your gases and not counting it.
I'm a little bit confused by that, but you talked about it in light of refueling.
Yes, my understanding is when you refuel, you take the pressure off. You have the stuff that sits down, and you have all the gases that escape.
All the radioactive material that's released from a plant is monitored.
Like from Millstone 2 weeks ago?
I'm not familiar with the situation. Let me answer the gentleman's question here. They're monitored, and then we have the utility is required to report on those releases. Now, so for there's not any significant releases that happen in the actual the shutdown and the refueling process. Now you mentioned you mentioned inert gases. Let me ask Ron, is there anything, this is Dr. Ron Beldy, and he's a branch chief for the plant, as far as the monitoring of inert gases?
All of those gases are required to be monitored, and they're required to be reported to us. And those reports are available publicly. There is an annual effluent release report that Vermont Yankee, as well as every other plant in the country, publishes. Those reports are a matter of public record. So you can find out exactly what this plant has released every year since it's been in existence, as well as every other plant in the country. That includes gases such as xenon and krypton. Yes.
And where is that available? Is there a specific website that I could go to?
You could go to the NRC website. You could search on Vermont Yankee annual effluent release reports, and you will find those reports. And as a matter of fact, those reports are required to be submitted by May 31st each year for the prior year. So if you go on that site now, you will find Vermont Yankees report, yes.
How do we know it's true?
No. Well,
How do we know it's true?
he said that data produced by Entergy.
That data is produced by Entergy. That data is produced by monitors and procedures that the NRC staff has experts that go up and we verify that those monitors are accurate and that those procedures are being implemented.
So you will hear us talk about, and I think Ron might have had it for the earlier part, to tell you that we have about 6,000 hours, inspection hours, that we have inspectors go on site, do independent assessments and inspections of the various things that Entergy is doing. We have 2 resident inspectors on site the whole time, and then I have staff that go radiological protection trained folks that come up and do exactly that. They review those kinds of reports. So in among those 6,000 hours that you'll hear about, that's some of the inspections that they're doing to verify that what Entergy has told us is true.
The assessment is that that's an inconsequential release of radioactivity.
Yeah, I mean, inconsequential. It's determined to be a safe amount of release for the various effluents. If it's not, then we give them a violation or a finding, and if it's very significant, then that elevates the consequences of what happens in that finding or violation. Yeah.
I want to know why, when Entergy lied to the public, to the senator, to the governor, to the media about the strontium-90, saying that they did not release strontium-90 from Vermont Yankee, even though the strontium-90 was found in the fish. The state and the Entergy have found that strontium-90 exists in the fish. And we were told that it must be from Chernobyl or above-ground testing because Entergy does not release any strontium-90. And that's on the record from Larry Smith for Entergy. And when it came out through Ray Shaddis going onto the NRC website, he found that the NRC knew about that all the time, that Entergy had told the NRC that they regularly release strontium-90 from the time they bought the plant on. And the NRC came back and said, we have no responsibility to tell the public that Entergy is lying to you. That is what the NRC said. We are supposed to trust you?
Patty, do you want a question answered?
How can we trust you?
How can we trust you? You know, I can't
thought that was an
believe
appropriate
anything that you
question.
say, and that's the problem.
Could you respond to the strontium-90 question?
Massachusetts U.S. representative. The NRC is a lapdog, not a watchdog. We don't trust you to consider our safety. You are working for the industry, you get your money from the industry, and if you're without a job because you shut the place down and you tell the truth like Gregory Asco did, you're going to be marginalized and your character will be assassinated and you will resign like he did. He was the one watchdog, and he's gone now.
Thank you for your comment.
What about the strontium-90? What do you have to say about the strontium-90?
I will say that first of all, that we do tell the truth. That I'm very proud of that fact, and that's why I'm in the business, is to regulate safety. I'm an independent regulator, and I don't get my money from Entergy. Entergy doesn't pay my paycheck.
The taxpayer does.
Correct. So the Congress appropriates my money. Congress appropriates our money. That's where we get it from.
Hold on a second, Chris. Hold on, Chris. Let him answer the question. Let him get through the question. But you won't. You won't. You keep interrupting.
I'm going to give you, I think, I'm going to frame the question I think that you have on strontium-90, and I hear people saying they want to hear a little bit about strontium-90. There's a lot of cases where people find strontium-90. I think you're referring to a case where a fish upstream of the Vernon Dam was found with some levels of strontium, and did the NRC know about that? And the NRC was made aware of the testing that was done on that fish. So the question is, where did it come from? They're upstream of the, of the plant. Let me finish. Hold on, please. Will you let me finish? Will you let me finish?
Entergy told you that they release strontium-90 regularly, and they told everybody else, including the senator, the governor, the media, the public, that they do not. There's no reason to think that strontium-90 in those fish is coming from Entergy. So they lied to us, and you did not open your mouth to say Entergy is lying to us because it's not in your rules and regulation to tell us that they're lying to us.
And the reason why we didn't tell you that Entergy released, or take them to task for something about strontium 90 is because of the sample. It was And I'll ask Dr. Bellamy to talk about minimally detectable activity and strontium-90, but that's the issue with the fish that was found up. Where did it come from? There's strontium in the environment. Did it come from very low levels? You can't say there's not any tag or chemical detection that would say did it come from
Let me move on to the next question. Annette Corbett.
Still, did Entergy ever tell the NRC that they released strontium-90?
The answer to that question is yes. The answer to that question is yes. It is a matter of public record. If you would pull out those annual effluent release reports, you will see strontium-90 regularly listed in those reports. Strontium-90, excuse me. Strontium-90 is a very easily distinguishable isotope in the effluents. It is released in minimal quantities from Vermont Yankee. Entergy did not lie to us in telling us that there were strontium-90 releases from the plant. Entergy did not lie to us in that the effluent releases of strontium-90 from Vermont Yankee were not sufficient enough to lead to the concentrations of strontium-90 that were found in that fish.
Why did you not tell Senator Sanders that that happened? Why did you say that you didn't have to tell Senator Sanders about that? Why did you say it was not the public's business? Why? That's Patty's question. Why didn't you answer?
We went through 7 questions in 40 minutes.
All right.
And we have, hold on for a second, please. And we have 20 other people who want to make statements. Now, we're never going to get through them all.
Then why are we having a meeting without you and we can make our statements? He's not answering the questions.
He's answering them as best as he can. You just don't accept, you refuse to accept the question. Annette Corbett, how do you pronounce your name? Annika, I'm sorry, Annika Corbett?
Yes.
Please.
Hi.
Try it, let's go.
So we have learned from reading research in Europe, where they're a little more ahead of us than here, I'm afraid, that if a child, a young child under 5, I believe, lives within 2 kilometers of a plant, that child has twice as much of a chance of getting leukemia as any other child that's randomly living somewhere else. And I want to know, do you think those are just throwaway children? Do they not count? What if that was your child? I'm sure you don't live next to the plant.
Well, I know there are no throwaway children. Let me just say that.
Thank you.
But you can ask the other question.
I have children, I have grandchildren. Some of them live near a nuclear power plant. I have in the past. So, but that's not true. That's not your question. The question is, do we have a study that says that the incidence of cancer is higher near a power plant than a nuclear power plant than general population? And we've had some of those studies. We rely on one that's about a 20-year-old study that said no, there isn't a higher incidence of cancer and health risk around a nuclear power plant. So,
20 years ago, we were in a lot better shape 20 years ago than it is now. It wasn't cracked up.
You might let him finish his answer, please.
So,
you can make a comment.
so the NRC said, hey, wait a minute. Maybe it's time for another study, okay? We've had some hits of that. What is the current medical and epidemiological studies say? How do we get through those? And so the NRC commissioned the National Academy of Science to take a look at that and say, can you do a study for us that will help us get a better understanding, more modern understanding of cancer incidents in the vicinity of a nuclear power plant? That work is still going on with the National Academies, and they are deciding whether or not they're is going to be a study, whether that be fruitful or whether the old study is good, or is there some other study that needs to be done. So that is an ongoing process, but they're thinking in the same way as you are. So good question.
Could you tell me who financed that 20-year ago study?
I'm not familiar with that information. I could, yeah, I mean, we could get that information if you'd like. If you want to see me afterwards, then I'll give me your email and I'll send you an email.
Chad Simmons. I'm giving great thought to what I want to say. Because we...
If he stands there silent for 2 minutes, that's making a statement.
Due respect, sir, I think I and the rest of us here have earned the right to think for a moment about what we want to say here. What I'd like to say is, I don't necessarily come here because I think you're going to listen to us. In fact, I've asked a couple of NRC folks their opinions, your opinions, about why we're not being heard. Obviously, we're not being heard. We want this reactor to shut down. A month ago, 2 months ago, a few years ago. That hasn't happened. You keep coming up with the word safety. Your definition of safety keeps getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And until we find ourselves in an accident situation like we have in Fukushima, like we had in Chernobyl. I've been alive now for a little over 30 years, and there's been a nuclear accident every decade of my life. I guess what I'm trying to get to here is, why do we continue putting ourselves through this? Why are we here today? I'm here to support people like Sarah Edwards, who's in committee after committee after committee. I'm here supporting the New England Coalition and all the other organizations that are spending hours in front of you and in front of other individuals and other entities trying to say this reactor needs to shut down. Nuclear power is not a part of our energy future. Safety, reliability, whatever term you want to put on it, we don't want to be a part of it anymore. That is why we're here today. We are here to tell you enough is enough. Listen to us. Listen to us. Shut this reactor down. This isn't a question. This isn't a debate. We're asking you to shut this reactor down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Woolner.
I'm going to cede my time to another person.
All right. Laurel Green.
I really appreciate what you had to say, Chad. Safety is really the key issue, and the NRC is who we have to look for. We can't look to our own legislators, even though we've tried. And we can't look to even our local community. It's got to come from the federal government. That's your business. And we don't trust you. The people who believe in Entergy, the people who work there, the people in Vernon, the few that have been willing to talk to me, believe in it and trust it. And those of us who want to shut it down now don't trust you. And I don't know, I would ask you, what could you do to help me believe that we're safe here, that our children and our grandchildren and the environment here is safe? I can't believe it myself, and I don't know how you'll be able to prove it. That's, can you show me in any way that I can believe that we're safe?
I can show you, but I'm not sure it won't meet the overall, statement that you start off with. So here's what I can say about what we can show you for safety. We have a very strong commitment in the NRC to openness. You look at what Chairman Yatsko has done. You look at what other commissioners have done. try to make, we don't write inspection reports and bury them away somewhere and not make them available. We make them public. We try to reach out in forums like this, sometimes public meetings, sometimes one-on-one meetings, sometimes government-to-government meetings, other forums where we discuss what our role is, what the safety parameters are, what our requirements are, the technical specifications, the Code of Federal Regulations, the rulemaking that we have, the different things that we're doing for new events, such things as Fukushima. What's the NRC doing? What are we doing to address safety issues?
4.5 years.
So we have those opportunities. We value that. I value that as a person. I think that I wouldn't want to be doing my business in a place where I had to be clandestine or secret or not raise issues. We have a very strong commitment to safety and safety-conscious work environment. That is, if somebody brings up to me an issue and says, "Yeah, I know that you're ruling, you or the NRC has ruled this way, but I think it's something different. I think, and I'm an engineer, and here's what, or I'm a specialist, and here's my position." So we have those processes. We think that kind of openness is where you need to go. I think if you look at our system, even our document system, some people get frustrated with it because it started off pretty badly, Adams, but it's our agency documentation and management system. It's a way that any member of the public can go on. It's getting better all the time, by the way, but you can go on. It's almost into the 21st century. I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but it's getting there with technology, where you can go on. You can search, like I think Carl mentioned or Ron mentioned. You can search on Vermont Yankee. You can search on a certain kind of report. You can find that report, and you can see what NRC. And again, what is NRC? An independent regulator, funded by the government, not funded by the utility. It's a overseer that looks at these things from an independent perspective. So now, whether you choose to believe that that's effective or not, that's another perspective. Again, somebody mentioned it in here. We're one of the premier regulators of nuclear power. You talk to people from IAEA. If you go and you have a serious conversation with one of the directors there at IAEA, you would find that our program is well respected. Well, that may not meet your needs, but I can tell you we are dedicated to openness. We have these feedback forums. If you can tell us how we can be more open to share that so you can better understand.
Power plants could be targeted by terrorists prompted the FDA to endorse the use of KI in the event of such attack. Then, in April, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, urged states to start considering making KI available to everybody who lives within a 10-mile radius of that power plant. There's a bunch of dots connected there, folks, and I'm really not happy about the fact that that's not part of the conversation, and that I'm really not happy about the fact that I could count more on the FAA to take care of safety issues with an old 747 than I can count on the NRC to take care of safety issues with Mark I reactors. The final thing I'd like to talk about is the fact of why I'm here. I'm here for my neighbors, for myself. I'm here for the ancestors that lived on this land for 10,000 years. I can tell you that every time a decision was made, the consideration of the safety and welfare of the next 7 generations was part of that decision-making process. It feels to me like the NRC makes their decision based on the welfare of the next seven generations of corporations. And that's what I feel. That's the experience that I've had with the NRC. I had a conversation with John Modis about the fact that I worked at that power plant and helped build it in 1968, and I saw things going on there that weren't right. I taped the conversation. John said, "This is not legal. It's not legal to tape a conversation with the NRC." I asked John, I need to know that our conversation back and forth has some way to be documented. Would you please contact me in writing? I'll contact you back in writing, and we'll have a conversation. He never called me back. I called him twice on the issue over a 6-week period, and that was the end of it. I did not get accountability from the NRC.
Here, here.
if you have an additional issue where you need the NRC to get back to you, I'll talk to you afterwards, I'll get your email. And we can talk some more. I'm not familiar with who you're talking about, but
I don't know John Motis, I know Mike.
yeah, I know Mike.
Region 1, John Motis.
No, we don't have a John Motis in Region 1, but we have a Michael Motis. So if you'd like to give me your name and contact information afterwards, I'd be happy to do something.
All right. Dick Bingham? That's you? Please.
First off, I'd like to say what a beautiful day to be in Vermont, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dick Brigham. I'm from Cuttingsville. I'm a farmer. I'll read this because it would keep me from getting off on a tangent. I'm speaking for myself, my family, and hundreds of friends. I am sure I am relating the views of the majority of Vermonters, regardless of whatever that poll was that Entergy paid for or somebody paid for. Everyone I talk to going all around the state wants it shut down, so I know I'm speaking for the majority of Vermonters. I'm probably also speaking for the majority of the people in the United States, or probably in the world, if they were informed about what really has been going on with the nuclear industry all these years. I want to say that we don't need or want Vermont Yankee, period, and we don't need or want its poisons. We all know nuclear power would be dead, dead, dead in the water if it wasn't promoted and sponsored by the government. The BRICS report, which was mentioned earlier, which is a 20-year study that was done in Germany, an extremely, extremely well done study, showed that every nuclear power plant causes more cancer and more disease wherever it is. Or your children completely resistant to nuclear poison? Oh, of course they are. Thanks to be able to speak.
I care about this community, and I care about the people in this community, and we really love it here. We also like to live a healing kind of life, and we have this shadow that stands over us and creates tremendous fear. And it creates fear because it's not safe. It keeps falling apart. Every year, every month, there's something that goes off. How are we expected to feel safe when that plant is not safe? Thank you.
I'll tell you what we do to ensure that the safety. I think I answered that question. Somebody else. I thought you were making. You did. You answered that earlier about.
The First Amendment, one of the 5 rights enumerated in the First Amendment, besides freedom of speech, religion, and assembly, etc., is the right to redress our grievances. And that doesn't just mean that we have the right to ask questions of public servants, but the right to get proper answers and remedies for problems. And I understand you're not actually a federal official. You don't have a GS number, or, as opposed to Mr. Jasko and the half a dozen or so men on the NRC who actually vote to relicense or not. Well, yeah. First,
when we talked before,
you said you didn't vote.
I said I didn't vote on that decision because it was our commission that voted. So we have 5 presidential appointees. They're called our commission, and those are the ones that would have that made the final vote that you're referring to.
Right.
Right. But the staff that works under them are all federal employees. I hope that clarified.
Basically, underlings of the gentleman who actually make the decisions as to whether the license or not.
They're like our board of directors is another way of looking at it, but I mean, they're our oversight panel. They make policy decisions, and we implement the policy that they decide on. That's correct.
And you're supposed to feed information to the ones who actually make the final decision, but none of them are here tonight. Therefore, my point is it's not an official NRC meeting if none of the actual voters are here. It's more like a dog and pony show. But anyways, I'll just read the one of the real meetings, yeah, with the real officials. Anyway, the spent nuclear fuel pool at Vermont Yankee is not only the same design as Fukushima's, but it holds the GE Mark I It holds twice the amount of irradiated fuel rods as the 4 reactors at Fukushima, with 5 times more radiation than the fuel pool at Unit 4 at Fukushima alone. This fuel pool, like all of the 23 Mark I boiling water reactors in the U.S., has no hardened containment structure to protect it. It only has a sheet metal roof, which is vulnerable to an airplane crash or tornado or a hydrogen explosion like what happened at Fukushima if a loss of power accident leads to a loss of cooling and the main reactor core has a meltdown. How can you say that Vermont Yankee and all the 23 Mark I reactors in the U.S. are safe and allow them to continue to operate when you know that we are facing these threats? And maybe you want to address the problems with Mark I.
Fuel pools with Mark I in a plant that has Mark I containment. How do we have an assurance that there's safety there when there's external events, either natural or man-made, that could affect them?
And human error here.
Okay. Okay. So I'll give you what we do to look at it, to look at the spent fuel pools, some of the design, some of the things that they have to be designed against, and then I'll give you a for example. They're designed to withstand a tornado size.
Been thinking about what I want to say. I was going to say something else, but then my friend Chad Simmons spoke so eloquently. I wanted to follow up on something I heard from Chad. Or it's related anyway, because it seems to me that you all work for the NRC because you believe in nuclear power and you believe that it can run safely. No, it's not a question. I'm not. My sense is that you wouldn't work for the NRC if you didn't believe that it was possible for nuclear power plants to run safely. I'm making an assumption here, and that a lot of us come here tonight. I didn't hear what you said. What did you say? It's not a question. It's an assumption I'm making. It's an assumption I'm making. Maybe not true. Okay. And many of us come here because we don't believe, and we could talk for a very long time, like for the rest of our lives, and probably not convince each other differently. And so I think Chad asked a really good question, because it seems to me that we've come here for many, many years having this same conversation. We've elected officials in our government who resoundingly answered what we want, which is to say we do not want Vermont Yankee to continue operating in this state. We come here and we say we do not want this reactor operating in our state. And so my question is really a pretty simple one. What is it that you would need to hear to shut this reactor down? Because we're saying it over and over again, and it's not happening. So what is it that we would need to say? You say you're an open organization. That's great. I like open. That sounds wonderful. But what is it that we would have to say that would get into that opening and convince you that this is what we want? We want it to shut down, and we would like you to act on our wishes.
Citizens in a community would have. And I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list, but an example of a couple of them that you have to interact with the NRC and ask us to take certain action. One of them is rulemaking.
One of them is what?
One of them is to ask for rulemaking. For example, you have you believe that our safety regulations aren't the way that they should be. You believe that a certain limit should be reached, and if a plant reaches that limit, they should be shut down, and perhaps this plant would have reached that limit, and so NRC would force the plant to shut down. So that would be rulemaking, and we take petitions for rulemaking. There's another petition that we have called we call it 2.206 because that's the part of our Code of Federal Regulations that addresses it. And it allows citizens, group, non-governmental organizations, other people who want to have a civic involvement to request of the NRC certain things, like taking certain actions against a certain plant. It could be, limiting power of the plant. It could be shutting the plant down. It could be a whole host of things.
A dry cast campaign, perhaps?
It could be. You could write it for anything. What that does is it goes into an adjudicatory process where we look at the basis, how it compares to, the plants, how the plant is operating, and you look at the basis of what you're stating, and there's an actual review that goes on that. We call it 2.206 petition. That's another one. What else can you do? If you happen to be, and I don't know, some people that are have positions, know people that work in a nuclear power plant, or they know, or they drive by a nuclear power plant, and if they see something untoward, they would let us know. That's our allegation process. That's the third process where we receive input from either people in public, either public citizens, individuals, a variety of people that says this plant is not being run safely. Here's the safety parameter, and here's why they're not meeting that safety parameter. So that's another process. That's not all the ways to interact. There's public meetings that we have. When we talk about, for example, rulemaking, if the commission is getting ready to rule on a certain, change a certain rule, they'll invite the public comments, and the public can write into those comments, write in during that comment period and provide their comments saying, I think that, whatever it is. And we consider those. We consider each and every one of those. I'm familiar with that. I've done it before. We consider those, and then we may or may not change the rule based on those. In many cases, we have changed the actual regulation based on those comments that come in. So those are ways that public citizens can interact and help to change the process through the NRC. Am I missing anything specific?
Did you have a
hearings? Hearings is another way.
Response with regards to the assumption that you want to make at one point?
She said that she didn't.
I'm interested in what your answer is. Because
Because
someone else asked me to ask you that question. Someone came up to me.
The assumption, the way I heard it, and maybe it's not the way you spoke it, so correct me if I got it wrong, is that we must be, I'll use a term of art, pro-nuclear because we work for the NRC and regulate safety. And I will tell you that very categorically, everybody that I've ever met and worked with in the NRC is interested in making the world a safer place and making nuclear power work safer. I like many other people, love I love the area around, the plant. I enjoy it when I come to visit. So it doesn't mean that we're pro-nuclear. I just want to say. So the point is that it's really more driven from a desire to improve safety or ensure that safety is being maintained at the plant. I think that's my opinion of an assumption you can make and it won't be wrong.
Well, the assumption that I was making, just to clarify, is that you believe that it's possible for a nuclear reactor to be safe, and that's why you're in the business of what you do, because you believe that the rules that you create actually make it safe, that a tornado that just 50 miles from here last year took out substantial buildings in a city and then wiped out communities throughout western Massachusetts, and a fuel pool with a tin roof would withstand that. Apparently you believe that that's safe. I don't, but so I think, what's that? Where? Yeah, I don't believe that it would withstand that, or a plane flying into it. So
But I guess what you didn't answer, what you've said essentially from your answer, you said there are lots of other processes where citizens can do things and it'll all go into the hopper and apparently it'll be considered, you say. But I don't hear anything about anything that we would say here tonight that would convince you to do what we are practically uniformly asking, which is for this plant to shut down. Is there anything that we would say to you tonight in this hearing that we keep coming back to every year that would convince you what we're asking, which is for this reactor to shut down?
Or at least I'm willing to spend fuel pool a little.
Is there anything? What is it you need to hear? What is it you need to hear from us? All these other processes out there and petitions and other hearings, but is there anything we can say tonight?
That's not the way the system works, unfortunately. You're not going to make a statement here tonight.
So this is an empty exercise.
Okay. The licensees are also entitled to due process. And due process, according to the Constitution, requires them to be heard before you take something away that's valuable. So you can't do that by making a statement to Mr. Williams tonight. That's not the way the United States Constitution works. It simply doesn't work that way.
They get to take from us. We don't get to take
I'm going to
from
do a
them.
time check because